Okay, so today before we begin, I want you to again identify what comes to your mind when you all look at the following images. Okay, so when you look at this image, okay, knowledge, anything else? History, anything else? Wisdom, okay. Let's take a look at the next one. Okay, library. Okay, source of light, good metaphor. Anything else? Okay, silence, good. Let's move on. Okay, history we mentioned already. Okay, search, that's good. So in a way, search, you can also say thirst for knowledge. Okay, this also basically will give you a similar kind of a imagery. That means you taking, so can we speak about effort here? That means you yourself need to take the steps in order to gain something. It is not going to come, the books are not going to travel from the library to your room. You have to make an effort, go to the library, search, and obviously now with e-books it is a different situation. But anyways, so today we'll take a look at Jaina epistemology. So trying to see knowledge, okay, from their point of view, how knowledge is gained and what are the sources of knowledge. But before we can go into that, there's a small exercise that we will do. So when you hear the word knowledge, so last time around we had done this exercise, right? So what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like. So take a few moments. When the word knowledge comes to your mind, what are the visual cues that you get, or what are the things that come to your mind visually when you look at, when you think of knowledge in general? Okay, we are not restricting here, we'll come to that later. But knowledge in general, when you hear that word, what does it look like? Okay, text looks like okay, tree with roots. Mind, books, okay. Light, okay. Okay, light, candle, bulb can go there. Okay, so teacher, student, maybe. Anything else? Where are you now? Okay, so maybe classroom or library. So does learning take place during experiments? Yes. So you get knowledge also through experiments. What about when you just sit and try to observe something. Do you get any knowledge from that? Okay, for example, you are sitting there and observing how the bird is building a nest. Is there any knowledge in that? Yes. Okay, so also we see that observation also does lead to knowledge. Our devices. Do our devices give us knowledge? Okay, so our gadgets also in a way. So therefore, we see that when it looks like you can include our gadgets, okay, then also some diagrams for graphically representing. Now let's move to the next one. What does it sound like? What does knowledge sound like? Now focus on the auditory part or the listening part. So what does flute, okay. We'll keep it at the side. Anything else? Okay, let me begin with it. So, when there are debates and discussions, right? So, there also is a kind of a verbal exchange, right? So, in this way, we can say that it sounds also like debates and discussions. So, on the same lines, can you think of something else? Okay, talks, lectures, arguments, okay, videos, somebody said, podcast, what am I doing now? What is it? Apart from that? Interaction still go beyond, little bit deeper. Yeah, but what is, there's a kind of a two-way process here, right? I'm doing something and you all are doing something. What is it? Okay, so there's question answer. So that also can help us to gain knowledge. Then also you all said interaction. Then you can also have guidance. When you all do your dissertation, you all go with the guide. The guide tells you whether you're on the right path or you have to add something more, etc. In what sense? News? Anyway, in the sense, obviously, you can also get knowledge through that. Listening. Okay, let's move to the third aspect now. What does it feel like? Insights, good. Okay, overwhelming. You all know about Archimedes? Okay. What happened to him? Exactly. So, what happened over there? Kind of you have exactly, overwhelming, a kind of a aha moment, right? That means some new discoveries, some new insights that came. Okay, anything else? What does it feel like? So generally when you look at knowledge, what is the picture or imagery that is shown? We already saw it in one of the pictures. Okay, books is there, but anything else? In the second image we saw, there was a book and there was something else kept on the book, right? Magnifying glass. So what does it indicate? Search. And what does search? What? Okay, search, discovery, yes, that is there. Yes, good. Okay. Curiosity. So now, what else does it lead to? So what does it feel like? It also feels like you grow and develop and also get enlightenment. Okay, so this is what general idea we have about knowledge. Now let's go little bit into more detail. So first and foremost, before we can begin the epistemology, let's quickly take a look at the philosophy of Jainism. So all of us know that Jainism can be traced to Mahavira, and who was he? 24th Tirthankara. So we all know that he was the one who in a way put together everything of the 23 Tirthankaras before him and in a way solidified or made things unified in that sense. So now we see that according to Jainism, its teachings are eternal. And we all know that Mahavira also was a contemporary of the Buddha. Now we see that during that time, as we dealt in the last few classes, there was a kind of a reaction to Brahmanism. Any reason why? Okay, so there were a lot of rules, rituals. Okay, next, what was something that was very striking during that period? Okay, division based on caste. And we see that the doctrines of Jainism, just like that of Buddhism, also come as a reaction or a rejection to Brahmanism. Now, Brahmanism was basically a religion that was based on what were its basis? Any idea? Okay, you had the Veda and the Upanishads. Okay, and the Brahmins thought about rigidity of society. Then you had the society divided into caste systems, and also the doctrine of reincarnation was guided by karma or merit brought about the actions of the individual. Now, their school of thought, okay, so the Brahmanical school of thought, they represented the authority of the Vedas and the Upanishads. That is why they were called as the orthodox darshanas. Okay, why? Because it respected authority of the Vedas and Upanishads. Now you all have begun darshanas, right? So what does the word darshana mean? Okay, so darshana means literally vision or view. Okay, and therefore we see that Buddhism, Jainism, along with schools of materialists like Charvaka, all these three come under the unorthodox darshanas. And the reason for that being that they thought that the Vedas, the Upanishads had no authority. In other words, they did not believe in the authority of the Vedas and the Upanishads. So now next we can take a look at some of the main teachings that we find in Jain philosophy. Materialist school, like Charvakas. So that will be something that you all will look into later on in Indian philosophy. So there is a distinction between souls and matter. Okay, so we see that the souls are spiritual entities which have inherent qualities. We dealt with that last time. What are some of the inherent qualities that the souls have? Okay, you have knowledge, then consciousness, and bliss. On the other hand, we see that matter is physical and non-sentient. Okay, the physical and non-living. Now what happens when the soul and the matter interact? We see that it leads to the entanglement of the soul and this then leads to samsara, the cycle of birth, death, rebirth. So a few classes back we saw the five things that come under matter, right? So just go to a few classes back when we were doing the whole concept when we did the concept of God and soul. Yeah, when we spoke about Ajiva, okay, so we had certain classifications. What were they of matter? You had time, then space, medium of motion, medium of rest, and you had physical matter. Okay, and we also saw when these interact with the soul, how it tends to lead the soul into this cycle of birth, death and rebirth. Now we see that Jainism as such is an atheistic religion, but it does not deny the existence of gods as beings inside the cosmos. So for example, last time when we dealt with the concept of God, we said that Jainism doesn't believe in what type of God? Creator God. Okay, so it does not believe in creator God, but any soul, okay, that has in a way achieved Siddha can become divine or God. Now along the same lines, we see that what is the root or etymology of Jainism? First classes? Yeah, but from where does it come? So we see Jainism or Jaina is derived from Jaina, which means conqueror. Okay, and this is a common name that was given for the 24 Tirthankaras. Why? Because what was the reason? Why was it given for them? How are they conquerors? So in a way they conquered passions, they conquered ignorance, and finally they were able to get liberation. So as we also dealt when we looked at Jaina ethics, the main emphasis that Jainism puts is on, what is the main emphasis? Ultimately, what does it come to? Liberation, yes, but in the sense, who is responsible for your own fate? You. So what about the individual is important? Effort, yes. Something else? Conduct, right? So how the individual behaves, what are the actions, okay, he performs. So in a way we see that practice of good life is what Jainism tends to emphasize. So now let's take a few look at the distinctions between the Jiva, Ajiva and the other aspects of this philosophy. So first and foremost, we see that there is a distinction between Jivas and Ajivas. So Jivas, as we know, refer to the souls, and Ajiva refers to the non-souls. So we see that here when we look at dualism, so the souls, as we have seen, are spiritual entities, and they have consciousness, knowledge and bliss. So an example would be a human being or an animal. Why? Because it is living, it has consciousness, etc. Now ajiva basically would refer to the physical non-living substance without consciousness. Okay, and what example can we give? Table, good. Chair, rock, water, etc. Whatever. Tree will come under jiva. When we look at plants, we see that they respond to light, right? So for example, touch me not will have, then also the certain plants respond to the movement of the sun. So in a way, they are also considered to have some element. As you all will study in Aristotle, you all have done the different stages of vegetative, similar to that. So next is pluralism. That means it has infinite number of substances. So Jainism recognizes in a way both animate and inanimate substances. So example of animate would be humans, plants, okay, and even microscopic organisms which have an unique soul, whereas inanimate would refer to soil, fire, space. So different forms of matter which are formed out of atoms and particles. Now at the same time we see that Jainism holds that different substances, however distinct they may be to one another, they exist independently. So it believes that when you look at the example of tree and soil, so we see that tree is a, what substance is it? Animate or inanimate? Animate substance, okay? It's a living substance. Tree as well as soil. Now soil is a non-living inanimate substance composed of atoms, particles, etc. They both exist independently as real, separate, entities. In a way, they may be dependent on one another for the nutrition, etc. But as existence, real as well as separate existence. So they exist independently of one another. If you remove the tree, the soil will still be there. Okay? Yeah, so I mean in the sense, if you remove the soil, it may be replaced, the tree may be replaced or it may be cut down, so it changes the form in that sense. Yeah, but in a way, there is that reciprocal thing is not there. So because see, soil is not the only thing it depends on, there is also water and other elements which it requires. So in that sense it is looked at. Next we have that Jainism believes that every atom in a way has a soul. Okay, listen to this carefully. Every atom has a soul, but it is not jiva because it lacks sense, organs and consciousness. Okay, so every atom has a soul, but it is not jiva because it doesn't have the sense organs and consciousness. And then you have permanence and change of the soul. Okay, so for example, we see that a person's soul remains the same so throughout life, but at the same time we see that experiences, knowledge, emotions change over time. So you may be the same person, but the way you look at, react to something, your experience, your emotions can change or vary. So then you also have a classification based on extension, in the sense whether they occupy physical space or not. So can we have any example of something that occupies physical space, occupies space? Yeah, so table, chair, your phone. Okay, so anything that does not occupy space, which one? Something that doesn't occupy space, it is there. Air, where air also occupies this thing, right? Anything about time? Does time occupy space? Okay, so we see that time also, in a way, consciousness is said to not occupy any physical space. Okay, so it also makes a distinction whether things occupy space or no. And finally, you have the rejection of an ultimate universal soul. So in a way, it does not believe that there is one soul which in a way governs everything that is there below it. Okay, so you have other philosophical systems that have an universal soul. So in Hinduism you have the concept of Brahman. So Jainism does not believe in this universal soul, but for Jainism we see that each soul distinct and unique. So now we can move to the Jaina epistemology, and we see that in the Indian system, what is knowledge equated to in general? What is knowledge equated to? Okay, power. Anything else? Okay, so you all said knowledge equated to power, wealth. Anything else? In what sense? Okay, it can also be used for negative reasons. Control, yes. So, what does it broadly represent? So, for example, let's take knowledge as power. Supposing if you are made known that you have certain rights and certain things which which you should not be deprived of, what does that lead you to? Justice, exactly. And what does, once you get justice, what happens to you? You get liberated in a way, right? So even you see that wealth also, knowledge leading to wealth, helps you to liberate yourself from a situation where you have nothing. So in the Indian philosophical system, knowledge is equated to liberation. Okay, why? Because it is said that ignorance binds you, or ignorant leads you to, in a way, a kind of a destruction. So therefore knowledge or illumination enlightens you and liberates you. So therefore in Jainism, knowledge is considered as one of the means to liberation. But Jainism has a totally different view of knowledge. For Jainism, knowledge is not something to be grasped or possessed by the soul, but we see that it is a state of the soul itself. So in a way, knowledge is not something that comes from external things, but we see that knowledge is always or already inherent in the soul. It is the essence of the soul. When we were doing the whole concept of soul, we saw that the soul has infinite consciousness, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss. So therefore, knowledge as such, according to Jaina philosophy or Jaina epistemology, is inherent in the soul. So it is not something that the soul acquires from outside. So now we can take a look at an example of a candle. Yes. So you have an candle here, and we see that it emits light. Now this light, can anyone tell something about this light? What this light is, where it comes from? Okay, flame. Okay, light comes from the flame. Let's go deeper. Where does the flame come from? Deeper? Okay, so to put it in simple words, this flame which is there, which gives light, does it come from outside or does it? So the flame is something that comes from within it is part of the lamp, right? It is part of the candle, it is part of the lamp. It is not something that it takes from outside. Okay, so similarly, soul also and knowledge is something that is already inside the soul, but it is manifested through actions or through words, etc. Same thing as the light is already there, it has only to be lit. So it has the potentiality to light, provided the candle is lit. Now knowledge also is seen as a state of the soul. So as we have already seen, when the soul is free from karmic particles, it can achieve its full liberation. Okay, and the example that we dealt was with the glass, right? The glass of water with the impurities. So the more mud you put, the more muddy it becomes. It is not clear. So the same thing here. As long as you have more karmic particles attached to the soul is not able to have its original essence or its original qualities. Next is liberation and knowledge. So as we said, knowledge leads to liberation, and this liberation here is removal of karmic obstructions. Okay, which also we have seen when we were looking at bondage. Now next, something that is interesting is knowledge versus external learning. So what is external learning according to you? Okay, knowledge from outside. What will that include? And what are the means of that knowledge? Books, lectures, news, okay. Okay, there can be various other sources. So we see that Jainism believes that this external knowledge or this external learning is different from knowledge that the soul has. So, to break this down, you have the soul, it already has knowledge within it. Now what external learning that is happening, okay, you are just in a way realizing its potential. So in a way it's already there within you. So when you learn certain things, you are just trying to discover it, you are just trying to bring it out to the surface. Okay, for example, may not be appropriate but somewhat close, when we look at our fossil fuels, right? It's already there in the ground. You're only supposed to extract it and in a way make it usable. So same thing is the role of external learning. So books, news, lectures, any other sources of external knowledge that we have are only helping the soul to kind of remember or kind of realize what its potential is and manifest its true nature. So in a way we see that a person may study various subjects, acquire information, and this in a way will help him to uncover certain things that are already there.
Knowledge is just external knowledge. The external knowledge, the soul has the external knowledge.
Soul already, knowledge is inherent in the soul. Okay? Now this, you are just helping it to discover its potential. Let me give another example. Let's say a musician. Okay? So, if a person does not have a kind of a particular talent or a knack for music, okay, you may give however much classes, however much whatever notations, etc., the person will not be able to play. Whereas you also have certain people who just by listening are able to produce the notes, are able to play. So in that way, what is happening is, when you are giving them this external sources of knowledge, it is just helping to kind of remove the dust what is already there on it. Okay, so you have already know the things, you are just, Plato, as you know, okay, yes.
One person is able to pick up the decision that knows everything. The soul knows everything. So everyone has to pick up the same thing because the soul has to remember.
Yeah, but then we also say that each one is unique in that sense, and secondly, each one will also have its different set of karmic particles attached to it, which in a way obstruct the soul from reaching its potential. So therefore, even though everything may be same, but the way it is kind of over the time. Okay, so for example, the karmic particles attached, different capabilities may be affected in that sense.
So the external learning is the tool remembering the knowledge the soul already has.
Yeah, it is just kind of helping the soul to get back to it. So when we look at the liberated soul's omniscience, so we see that when a soul is in a way liberated, it is able to, it's basically all knowing, and this state is called as the Siddha. Okay, and this is a state where the soul has shed all its karmic purities, and as a result of it, we see that it perceives all objects in the past, present, and future. Okay, so tomorrow we'll begin with this. Now we'll stop here. So thank you.